Welcome to the Nightmare Vault. Today we'll be covering the true story of the theatre.
I say, didn't you want to do the follow-up for quite a while now?
Yeah, well, since we covered the original, and I think it made sense to follow it up. I was sort of quite intrigued by the story itself, but then the fact that there was a sequel, which I guess is somewhat common with more the popular creepypastas, but yeah, this one...
Well, actually, the really popular ones got their own knockoffs.
Yeah, knockoffs and...
fan-made stories.
So, pretty interesting.
So I'm kind of down to do what? Jeff the Killer versus... What was it? Jane Killer versus Jeff Killer? Or was it Jeff the Killer versus Jane the Killer? I can't remember which order it is.
Something like that, yeah.
Which actually... Jane the Killer's actually like just basically a gender-bent Jeff the Killer.
Yeah.
Which I just find interesting.
Yeah.
Which we may cover that.
At some point, I think it makes sense.
Although I feel like it's kind of downhill once you get into the copycats.
Yeah. I can definitely see how it would be. But I do also like the title of this one being The True Story. So, yeah, so I guess adding to the mystery of it all and the sort of urban legend stylings. I guess, yeah. Also, original author unknown.
I think wasn't that the case with the original story as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that sort of like questioning, is this from the same author or completely different? It could be,
maybe not.
Yeah, it could be fan-made.
We're going to have to figure out.
Yeah. But then for this one specifically, there was also this publisher's note, which states that, the original tale was unknown, story was featured here, was transcribed from a 4chan screenshot. So there's all these little interesting little pearls to be found, I guess, particularly covering such old stories as well.
I'd say actually a lot of the stories we covered so far are pretty old, except for some of the ones that you've covered.
Yeah. Was it the zombie one? I can't remember what it was called.
Persuaded, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a pretty new one.
And then the other one, there was another one too.
The cassette one.
Yeah.
But all the others, yeah, I guess have been 2012 or older, I think.
Actually, some that I think, pre-aughts.
Yeah, there has been. I think the other thing that intrigued me about this one is the rating as well, because I believe from memory, the original was up around the 9 out of 10 sort of mark. So the fact that this one is, sort of dropped down 6.52 is interesting. I guess, and that is, you see that in most sequels as well, that, there's very, very little sequels are better than the original. So I guess, I want to see why. Why is it not as good?
Well, I guess your show, you get into it.
Let's go. It's not something whispered about in certain circles. It's not something that comes in a plain-looking jewel case. It's not by a nameless, untraceable developer. And it's certainly not supernatural. The game in question is indeed called The Theatre, R before E, and was developed by a company called Salida Software. I'm fairly certain it's an English company, despite the Spanish name. As far as I know, all they made was learning software. I have a maths suite from them lying around somewhere. So the theatre was likely meant to be some sort of edutainment game. It was obviously never finished, probably from lack of funding or the parent company going under. The description in the original story is actually pretty accurate. It's in a first-person perspective with flat sprites in a 3D-ish environment. And it's glitchy as hell. The ticket taker has an egg-shaped body, and one of his hands is huge and misshapen. I think to look like he's reaching toward you for your ticket. The description of the swirly-haired man is also accurate. He's a glitched version of the ticket taker. I saw a few people saying that he looks like Gygas, but that's not the case. The features of his face are red because his lips are gigantic. I have absolutely no idea why his face is swirled, though because while there are a few character sprites in the game's resources, this isn't one of them. Oh, and just to clarify, the sprite is a bit creepy. That's all. It's not terrifying. It's never filled me with a sense of dread. It's just a bit creepy. The game plays pretty much exactly as stated in the story. So accurately, in fact, that I think the author must have downloaded it somewhere themselves and wrote based off of their own experience. I'll admit that some things in it can be unsettling, but not OMG crap your pants scary. Like I said, the game is unfinished and very glitchy. The idea was that you would select a movie from one of the posters on the wall, enter the theater, and play a minigame. The minigames are buggy and missing resources, to the point of being almost unplayable. There doesn't seem to be a time limit for any of them, so you just have to plow through until you've done something right enough times to be dumped back into the lobby. What's described in the story is what happens if you don't select a movie. You'll be allowed to enter the theater, but since the parameter of which game to load hasn't been set, you'll just be dumped back into the lobby. Here's where it gets a bit weird. If you continue to enter the theater without choosing a movie, odd and sometimes creepy things will happen. I'm not sure why, but if I were to make an educated guess, it'd be that glitching past the minigames like this causes variables to reach values that they weren't meant to, resulting in things appearing where they shouldn't. Or, the game is just messed up to hell and back. It's been years, but here are some of the effects I can remember. The swirly head man's presence, movie posters appearing out of their frame, textures changing colour, a legitimately disturbing audio issue, other characters showing up, other areas becoming unlocked. The last two are obviously the most interesting ones. Sometimes you'll spawn into a small room with a black floor and green walls, which will crash the game if touched. Sometimes you'll appear in a room similar to the lobby with a concession stand. Kind of. There's a woman behind the counter with an incredibly poorly drawn popcorn machine and soda fountain, but it's all just an image on the wall, a big yellow concession stand mural. I don't remember if you can interact with it or not. The only other character worth talking about is a guy in a brown jacket who appears on the sidewalk outside the lobby. Looking back, I don't think the story mentions this, but to the left of where you start out, there's a row of glass doors looking out onto the street outside the theater. If you glitch past the minigames enough, a man in a weird-looking jacket, I think it's supposed to be tweed, with a huge smile on his face will appear on the other side of the doors, staring at you. And when I say a huge smile, I mean huge smile. Like Freaky Fred or Spark Brushel, both of whom you can Google image search if you want. Actually, since the brown jacket man has the same body shape as the ticket taker, he looks a bit like the mayor from The Nightmare Before Christmas. His smile isn't creepy, though it's just broad. What is creepy are his eyes. While the ticket taker, ashtray, and other sprites will always face you, the smiling guy is anchored in place like one of the walls. His eyes, however, are always staring right at you. Just thinking about that gives me chills. There's nothing overtly scary or supernatural about the game itself. But that's one thing that I will admit legitimately scares me. They're like a porcelain dolls. Ahem. That's pretty much all there is to the theater. If you can find it somewhere, I'd recommend downloading it just to see what it's like. Oh, one thing I'd forgotten. As stated in the story, getting the game to run is, to say the least, difficult. But I think someone got a hold of all the code and resources and compiled it and added their own installer or something. Again, there's nothing paranormal about the installation. It just doesn't work well. All right.
So I guess this was made by Todd Howard, I guess. I had to do it.
Yes, maybe.
Well, I guess the problem is it just doesn't work.
Yeah, like the installer, this story just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I don't even know how this has a 6, to be honest. Like,
I was about to say, yeah, this thing's... I'm not sure if you can even really call this thing a creepypasta.
I definitely wouldn't. No, it's...
I think this thing... For a moment, I was thinking, this can't be a creepypasta, like, for real.
Yeah, like in this series so far, we've covered some how's it going stories, but at least there's been,
Creepypasta elements to it.
Yeah, and they've been creative, where this is just very boring.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And yeah, we've mentioned in the past, a lot of creepypastas, their grammar and spelling and all that is not too good. But again, I can kind of get past it because there's some good creativity happening, or at least, attempting to be had. Whereas, yeah, this one, not only is it a bad story, but also, yeah, the grammar was tough to get through at some points.
Quite a few mistakes that.
Yeah, and there's just points where it's so wordy and it doesn't have to be. Yeah, and it's, we've also covered some other creepypastas where, it's sort of been like recounting memory, and that's kind of what we got here as well. But yeah, it just did not work well. I guess, yeah, to offer it an olive branch, I do think because it was just a screenshot from a 4chan post, it probably wasn't meant to be a creepypasta story. It kind of just feels like it was just, someone, maybe trolling or something like that, to throw in some misdirection maybe, or, just playing around. So I can sort of give it that, I don't think the purpose was that it was meant to be a story. Kind of just feels, someone joking around, being a bit of a dick on 4chan, that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't
That sounds
feel...
like the case, although it seems like it comes from something awful forums, which I guess, and them screenshots were taken and they were put up on 4chan, so...
Yeah, so...
Because that's what I'm getting from the publisher notes.
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, it says, for more like this, please see the video game hoaxes and urban legends thread on the Something Awful forums. So it's almost, someone, I guess, with that theme of, sort of video game hoaxes and urban legends. It's sort of, someone like trying to come in and debunked the
That's
theater.
what I'm kind of assuming that's the case, but then again,
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but...
Yeah, no, I assume the same. But again, I can kind of see what they're trying to do, but it could have been, much more interesting and creative. I don't know. This is probably the worst. I think
I was about to say, I don't think that there's really much competition.
No. And
Even like Jeff the Killer, which is kind of notoriously hated.
Yeah.
At least it had quite a few things going for it.
Yes.
Even though I'm not a fan of the reboot.
Yeah.
Because it kind of lacks the charm of the original. But then, well, I think, didn't we bring that up in the video originally?
We definitely did.
Which I've got to say, that was quite a long one from memory.
That was a very long video. Yeah.
I think the second story was actually pretty fair. It took up most of the runtime, actually.
Yeah, it definitely did, because it was the longest story as well.
Well, I do have to point out this one fella who actually kind of does sort of sum up my feeling of newer stuff.
Okay.
Ricardo said these old creepypastas were so simple yet had so much going for them. I love the stories nowadays too, but these feel more like novels. And that's I definitely agree with him solidly on that, because a lot of the modern creepypastas now just, as he said, feel like novels. But the older ones were very simple, straightforward, but had quite a bit going on. Well, quite a bit going for them. I don't know, I'm trying to rephrase it.
I mean, I
guess
can't...
now when H-Bomber Guy brings out his next video, I'm going to be in it. Yay.
I can't really comment too deeply, but I from what I've experienced so far, I probably would agree that, there's been so much more left to interpretation and to expand on the older ones, where, the newer ones definitely seem to be much more self-contained, much blander to an
think-
extent.
I think the problem is they explain too much
Yeah.
and don't leave much up to the imagination.
Yeah. I mean, the older ones definitely have a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say
Not as much.
to an overwhelming extent like
Yeah.
some of the newer stuff. I wish, I guess there's not going to quite go back to the olden days, but I do appreciate the some of the new stories that do kind of embrace the feel and spirit of some of the older stories.
Yeah.
In my mind, those are the ones I tend to enjoy most.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we got the rate the thing now, so
Yeah.
what are you giving it?
To be honest, I think I'm going to give it a 1.
I was going to give it that, but no. I'm going to give it FA.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. It's one of those things as well. Like sometimes, a bad story can be entertaining because it is bad. And
I don't think it's there. No.
Yeah. And this I would say is definitely a waste of opportunity and time. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. I could ramble on, but I think that says it pretty bluntly and succinctly. Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts on this one?
No, but it does feel like a bit of a waste of time to cover this.
Yeah.
So we might just end up scrapping this episode.
We'll see how we go.
If so, then I guess maybe not see you next time because this won't see the light of day. Well, it may.
It may.
Because we're a bit behind schedules and this would be relatively quick to come out.
Yeah.
I guess we should wrap it out. Bye.